Hello and welcome guys to another video, and today we have week 6 Long Beach in the GT4s. So let's get into the Hotlap and then the track guide. So let's have a look at the guide now that we've seen the Hotlap. So we're looking for the 500 meter board on the right hand side, and we're braking in line with the 500 meter board for the first corner. Braking down the gears, being on the right hand side, tyre just on this line here. Don't cross it, otherwise you'll get an invalidation or slowdown. I can't remember which one it is, but you'll get one of them. Left wheel all the way up onto this curb. You can really attack the curbs in this car. On the brakes, trailing the brakes and getting onto the throttle just about halfway round that curbing. Open up the wheel, get as close to this barrier on the right hand side as possible, and then try and basically aim for this Acura board. We're trying to straight line this little section as much as possible. So looking for that Acura board, and we're braking just before we cross this yellow line. So just before we cross that, getting onto the brakes, down into second gear, and get as close as possible to this curb, this barrier, on the left. And then turn in nice and late down into first gear and use a little bit of this curb on the right to help us rotate. Then soon as we are pointed in the right direction over here and we know we're going to get around this wall, then we want to really get on the power, open up the steering wheel and then bring it over to the left side again. Now we're going to get on the brakes and turn in just before this advertising board on the left hand side. Or if you can see it, use this little sign here, but that's difficult to see at higher speeds. So try and use this advertising board if you can. Just before that, down into second gear, get on the brakes and we turn in just as we cross that advertising board. Again, using all this curb on the right hand side, and the car settles pretty much immediately as soon as we come off that curb. Managing the power to stay as close to this wall on the left as possible. And then we're braking just at the start of this white section of barrier on the left hand side. Onto the brakes now, and we turn in just before this barrier on the left hand side, or alternatively use this marking on the road here, this left and straight on marking. As we drive over that, we want to turn in, and we're aiming to get the right hand side of the car over this curb as much as possible, basically cutting the entire curb. Car settles really nicely, using the power, and just get as close to the barriers as possible. Lots of risk at this track for the lap time, but you just have to be so close to the walls to really extract all the lap time available. So now for this left-hander, we're looking on the right hand side and we're braking just before we get to the 200 meter board, onto the brakes, down into third gear initially, and we're turning in just as this Acura board starts. So we're turning in just as that starts, down into second gear now, and we're apexing just around halfway around the corner. Getting on the power nice and early and opening up that steering wheel. We don't need to go all the way over to the right here because this is so much wider. But then we want to bring it back over to the left for this coming right-hander. Bring it over to the left now, and we're looking for the boards on the left-hand side. And we're braking again just before we get to that 200 meter board. Down into second gear, and we're aiming to apex around about here. We see a few, I think this is a crossing marking here. we're apexing around about there. It's quite a late apex as you see here, but we're apexing there on the power nice and early, and then you'll notice a lot on this track that we sort of get on the power to about 50% and we're just slowly increasing it as we get to the wall, and that'll help you really find the limit of how far you can push the car to the barriers without hitting them. Now for this final little section, this is quite technical, so we're looking for the left hand side here, looking at these boards on the left, and we're braking just as we get to this 400 meter board, braking down the gears, and we want to turn in before we get to this advertising board on the left hand side, in third gear at the moment, down into second, bit of a late apex, we're apexing almost as this curb is finished on the right hand side, quite a late apex, again getting on the power before we get to the curb, and now we can keep it sort of on the left side of the track, and we're basically going to just brake about 10-20% just as we come under this tunnel or these advertising boards end. We're just braking a little bit just to keep it on the left hand side of the track. In second gear, let it coast now, let it go out to the middle and then bring it back over to the left with a little bit of throttle as you see here. Again, try get a really late apex. We want to basically be here to open up this final hairpin. It's very, very tight. We want to brake just before we get to the end of this barrier here, down into first gear, and we turn in just as that barrier finishes on the left hand side. All the steering lock basically in this car to get round this hairpin, and then get on the power and unwind the steering wheel as early as possible. Well, that is it for the Hotlap and track guide. As always guys, thank you very much for watching, hope you enjoyed, and see you again next time.